Hey guys, welcome to Wakefield to Knottingley episode number 25. Today we're going to be doing a bit of work around Pontifex, so we're going to be working, if you've watched the episode 20 to 22 to 24, you'll know exactly where we are and how we're doing with progress and stuff like that. So, since 24, I've worked on the section out of Pontifex going towards Knottingley. This is one of the little scenes that I've created down here at the end of a housing estate in Pontifex. Today, we're going to be carrying on in that direction. We're going to be going down there, putting in some distant scenery and also close up to the track, having a look at how we go about putting houses and stuff like that in. Quite a long and, for a route builder, quite a frustrating sort of task, I guess, because it's where you sort of getting the meat on the bone being this scenery here, the stuff that people generally see a lot from the cab. Then you've got to focus on what they don't see from the cab and sort of layering it up so it doesn't become too system, killing people's systems and stuff like that. I suppose a good example of how to show what I'm on about here is we see this first row of houses here. As you can see, we've gone through all this in previous episodes, but it's time, I guess, to have a little refresher on that and sort of my philosophy on doing it. So this first row, we've got detailed gardens. Got this dude here digging, he's got his dog with him, look. I don't actually know what, just looking at Google, it's a bit of a weirdo. You've got a caravan boat. There is actually a boat in this garden. No, seriously, there is. Got two camper vans and all sorts. You can't really tell exactly what's going on, but I've depicted it as a building scene. It looks like some sort of foundations in real life. So I've depicted it as a guy building his own sort of little plot of land. And he's got all his bits that he needs. He's got his cable reels. He's got his bench if he wants to sit down. If his back starts hurting, because he's doing a lot of bending down, and his fleece has got a hole on it. But if he needs to have a bend down, he can have a sit down. So he's already bending down. If he needs to have a sit down, he can sit down over here. Good lads here. Look, he's watching over. He's foreman. He's telling everybody what to do. And then in the afternoon, he can get his boat out and go for a ride around the park. So yeah. You can see what I was on about here with the... What was I on about? No. Shut up, Mark. I don't know what I was talking about. I'll re-engage my brain in a second. So, yeah, what I was on about is these gardens and stuff here. So, first row of houses at the side of the track. Basically, what we do with those is make them as detailed as we can. Key thing to do is to make each one a little bit different. So, that guy's got a garden shed, he's got a greenhouse, he's got a table. This guy, he's just got a trampoline because he's got kids and the little gits and, they smashed his shed up. You got folk with different layouts. You've got some with conservatories that have been added on. And basically then you've got the odd one that do have a garden shed. And then here you've got like the whole family setup going on. There's no wrong with just putting garden sheds in, but what I do is I always try and get a little bit of a rotation going on. Just vary it up so that you don't go, oh garden, oh look garden, oh look garden, oh look garden. Now, these are actually all new houses in real life, or newish, so all the fences on this one are the same because they're still as they were built on the estate, if that makes sense. Now, if we look at this side, and the psychological sort of way I look at this, is these houses on this side, although they look the same in TS because we don't have any suitable models for those ones, really. These houses on this side of the line in real life are a little bit older, and some people have changed the fence over time, or they've got hedges and stuff like that. But because you don't see these quite as much from the track, I'm not too fussed about varying up as much. I have not yet put the garden clutter in, to be fair. But you can see what I've done here is I've used different fences. I've used hedges for some of them, different coloured fences. And a better example of this, actually, is down here. So the reason what I do is if it's an old row of houses, you got to remember that when it's an old row, people have had more time. If the houses like these are 50 or 60 years old, they've had more time to then mess about with the gardens in real life. Different people have moved in, different families. So not all the fences are the same. So you're not going to see same garden fence, same garden fence, same garden fence, and not all down here being one sort of fence. Obviously, we're quite limited in TS. We don't have that many fence lofts. And it's something I'm hoping to get in the JT Common Library, to be fair, is a lot more sort of fences so that we can make better gardens. But this is about the best we can do at the minute. And the idea again is make sure that next to the track, you're driving from the cab, you do not see just the same monotonous sort of thing going on. So it's varied up and stuff like that. So it's not just like, oh look, there's a fence, oh look, there's a fence, and it gets boring. Now down here, because this isn't you know, from the car, but you're not seeing this. Even if you're trying to get a screenshot, you're not seeing down here. I'll probably put just the same fence up to the line side fence, just so that it's there. But I'm not going to go to town on it. And certainly, once I get back to this second row, I don't really do anything. I'll probably put some 2D trees in here just to fill out some of the gaps. But the point is not to just destroy frame rate for the sake of those houses down there, because that's not what we want to do. In terms of what FPS I'm getting, because my TS is sort of broken at the moment and has literally decided it's no longer installed on Steam, it's got rid of my FPS lock. So you can see up there, 80 FPS roughly we're on at the minute, so I'm not really concerned about that. It's going to drop as we go this way because he gets more detailed. And I'm expecting around 50 FPS somewhere around here. Still quite high actually, 65. My PC is running fairly warm, not too warm, yeah, it's getting down towards 50 odd there. But my PC is running quite warm at the moment. There's a radiator on in this room and it's pretty hot actually, to say it's March. Not hot outside, I mean it's hot in here. More ramblings. Right, so what were we yabbing about? We were yabbing about doing some gardens and stuff like that. So plan today is fill out some of these gardens. So as I said, when I get the first row of houses in, I'll generally have a little look, and the thing to note is the whole of the houses look they're slightly in the wrong place. The reason they're slightly in the wrong place, if I move these back to where the slope is, they're all going to start floating, and it's all a bit of a nightmare is this, because the houses sort of go up on a bank and then they come down. The street itself is on a hill. So yeah, it's all a little bit of a ball ache, to be honest. I'd much rather it be flat, but it's not. So I do it, get on with it and shut up, don't you? In terms of like how I go about doing this, from this side it's all green look. So what I've done first is I've got the roads in, made sure they're all sort of reasonably level and not like going up and down, sort of roughly following the contours of the land. And using Street View in some areas, specifically on the roads nearest the line, to actually check how they look in real life, but not getting too overly obsessive about it because there's no real need to. But yeah, just get the roads in first, so then you can see where to put your houses exactly. I don't get too upset about making sure the house goes exactly where it should do in real life. If people are going through your route looking to see if you've got every single person's garden right, sorry, but they've got too much time on their hands. The idea is that, you know, people drive along the railway, and as they're driving along, they recognise where they are in relation to real life. Now, if you live on the line, or you live right next to the line, you know, you might think, oh, well, my garden's not right or something like that. Well, unfortunately, the route wasn't designed for you to go and sit in your garden. I'm trying to simple as that, really. So it's a case of thinking that, you know, most people that play the game really aren't going to know about the area, but you know, try and recreate as faithfully as you can. Obviously, you know, we've got to turn all that stuff off down there, make sure my gradients are level, make sure we're not snapping to track. We want to snap to terrain, because we're on a hill, it's going to go all over the place, it's going to be a nightmare to adjust it all, but that's sort of what we want to be doing. So I've got a hedge loft selected here, and all I'm going to do is drag this across, and I'm not going to get like looking exactly what sort of fence somebody's got and stuff like that. There's no actual photos of this section of line. I've got a cab ride which I'm referring to, and what I have done actually before I do this is, because some of these are actually connected to the track, you see what I've done there is I've gone through the fence. So all I can do there to fix that is undo it, because that's just the easiest thing to do at this point. So get back onto this one. Again, it's gone through. Just basically, this is how finicky doing your lofts can be. It's going to keep doing it, and they've got the foliage in as well, which obviously makes it hellishly hard then to select it. There we go, we can select an edge. You've got to look around for that selection point and where the yellow lines highlight to let you select. So it's not floating, that's one good thing, because a lot of these will start floating. But what I've done is, in real life, you can see that some people have got just a hedge down the side of the gardens, not the track. So some people have got a hedge by the back of their gardens. And what I did there is I just offset around the fence loft. So basically the fence loft's still in there, but I offset the hedge around it. So I'll put what I call the base fence in first, which is the railway fence, and then I vary up as we go along. This side bizarrely has a palisade fence next to the fence, this side doesn't. And my key thing is to make sure that everything viewable from the track, especially within this boundary, is as close as I can get it. And then gradually it gets less and less specific as you get further out. Ideally you want the first line of stuff to be as close to real life as you sort of can, but train sim being train sim, it just is not possible to do that all the time because of how the game is. Now, I used these houses. We don't actually have, again, suitable houses really for what's on this row. The main reason I went for these is because they're in nice blocks, and if I just place one of these blocks, it counts as one asset. So I can place 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28 houses there, and only using 8 asset blocks. Is eight rows, so it makes it a lot sort of easier and better. And I'm just going to mute my microphone for a sec. Sorry, I had a dog barking attack there. Again, these houses are not that old, but they are probably about 10-15 years old, something like that, so maybe a bit older than that, to be fair. So we're going to vary the fencing up. And all I'm doing is I'm not offsetting because we're on a sort of changeable gradient. You could offset this if it was level. So if the gardens were all level, you could just offset from the original fence that I laid and go along. Look, they're not all level, and there's no way, thanks to Train Sim's stupid train mesh, you can't make that as a simple rolling hill without a lot of work and a lot of effort. So this is the easiest way to do it. So, as I said, first thing to do is to get the houses in. Get the gardens in. Sorry. Brains all over the shop. And you can see what we're looking for is where it's going to go through the fence. We're not going through because we're just going through with posts, so posts are fine. We don't want this bright orange colour to be showing on this side of the track, on the track side of the fencing, is what we don't want to be doing. And this is part of the sort of build that takes a long time, because you've got to get these, and again, be careful when you're grabbing these arrows, don't drag them, because if you grab and hold this blue line come out, if you're going towards your track, so if I'm going here for instance, I can end up easily selecting an arrow on there and then selecting the track, and then if you move it, you'll destroy your track. So one, it's important to back up your route, so make sure you back up your route I back up every 24 hours, but then I work on for just trains obviously, so that's a little bit over top for probably most people. Essentially, if you've put a big session in, just back your route up. Just copy and paste your content folder is the easiest way I do it. For most of the time. There are other methods you can set up, GitHubs and stuff like that, and all sorts of technical methods if you want to. The easiest way for the average route builder, just find your route folder in the content folder of TS, right click it, zip it up, change the name, so say Wakefield Knottingley, and then put the date after it so you know when it came from. And then what it does is if you mesh your track up in 2 weeks, you know, if you backed up every 2 weeks, but I will back up, you know, more than that if you were doing it more regular. You just go back to a most recently backed up version, and you can copy various files across. So you can copy your track files from your backups, you can copy your scenery tiles from your backups. Basically, you just copy what you want and put it into your route. Obviously, you know, your tracks bin and stuff like that all change based on what you put in, and that's where you got to be careful what you're doing. So if you've been working on your route and you mesh your track up and you're backed up and you've got a backup and you think, right, I want to fix my track back to how it was 2 weeks ago, go to your build from 2 weeks ago, get your track dot bin and also your track tiles folder, the full folder, and copy those and paste them into your current build. Obviously back up your current build then before, so that you can't make it any worse than what it is. Well, yeah, if you're doing track copying, make sure you copy your track tiles and your track bin, because otherwise you'll end up with track bin missing and stuff like that. Especially if you've laid other bits, and various issues like that can be fixed, or it's easy to mess up as well if you don't know what you're doing. So just something to be careful with. I think it's time to put another hedge in here, and I'm going to run out of things to gibber on about while I'm doing this, because it's a painfully slow task. I mean, we've only done the first 4 houses here, haven't we? Yeah, first 4 are done. It's going to take a fair while to do these. And I'll tell you what I'll do is, because it's just going to copy and paste along here, I'm actually going to cut the video, because I haven't got time to go through and do sort of time lapsing. I always do these when I've got a bit of time usually. I'll cut the video and then we'll come back to it when I've done all these gardens. Right then guys, so I've taken just been watching the time and stuff on my system, so it's 27 minutes since I cut the video, and I've managed to get all the fences in for this row. Reasonably happy how it's looking. A little thing like where the hedges are, so where this big edge is, there's no point in putting fences here, because if there's a big edge at the bottom, most people probably have a hedge. So we've put that in. And now what it's time to do is actually clutter the gardens up, so add the detail. So we want to add our garden sheds, we want to add our trampolines, football, goals if there's space for them. They're not very big gardens, they're long gardens, they're not very wide. But already I can see, from yesterday when I looked at the route, I can see a big difference here. And I'm sort of visualising, when I get the rest of it in on the right, see me on the hill, I'm looking at this for being a decent screenshot potential, with a train and the power station sort of dominating the backdrop. I think that's going to be quite a cool little view. Same in this direction, when we got everything in the background, everything's sort of done, I reckon it'll look pretty decent. Obviously there's a long way to go for that, but we'll get there. So, first things first, we want to clutter these gardens up, but we don't want to spend all afternoon going through this list, and looking for everything that we want to do. We don't want to do a Tom, guys, is what we don't want to do. Is basically what we're trying to avoid here, because Tom will go up and down this list and I'll spend 25 years doing it. So what we want to do is make a quick list of what assets we're likely to use. So to do that, we get onto our main asset list and we look through the list initially for all the things we might want to put in all these gardens down the street. And there could be all sorts of things we want to put in, but specifically first we want garden sheds. So we've got garden shed there, 1 and 2. Right, I've right click those. I'm going to left click the quick list red, and it'll add the 2 sheds. They'll stay in the main list as well, but it'll add them to this list. So that when I want to refer to them, I can just quickly go back and get them. And there's other things that I want to put in here. Let's go and find them. There's the trampoline there, so we've added that. Let's see what else we can find. There's some benches and stuff that I'm looking for at the minute that I know Will did for gardens. Flower tubs, I'm not too fussed about flower tubs. Build a skip, we don't want stuff like that. I'm trying to find Will's little benches that he did, the little garden seat things, but I can't find them. I think I've already got, oh there we are, garden furniture, look. So we want to right click those, dump them in there. Right, let's go to the Liverpool to press, no sorry, let's not go to Liverpool, just because I know we've got an actual set of garden stuff here. So garden, just right clicking these and adding them. So we're getting a variety of things in, just to vary it all up. Now I don't think there's much else left to get there. I think we've got most of it. What about these bikes? Can we put some bikes? Yeah, we can put some bikes in. So let's click those 2. And there'll be other stuff that I could use, that I want to use maybe, that I don't know is there. But I'm not going to worry too much about that. I've got a decent selection of things. That's the key thing here, is that we've got a decent amount of things sort of selected. Got the greenhouse and everything in there. Right, I reckon we're ready here. So first thing I'll do is, before I go putting trampolines and stuff in, I'm going to give everybody a garden shed. So we'll click this garden shed and we'll just drop it there like that. Now there's some pretty small gardens, so we can also put different garden sheds in. We've got three at our disposal here, so we can drop these in. And they are quite narrow gardens, so we are kind of having to put most of these facing the same way. Should be careful I don't put them between the gaps in the houses rather than actually in the gardens. So to actually get this row of houses from, as we start this episode, there were blank sort of sections, obviously, as we know. To get from that to a completely finished row of houses with the garden sheds and everything placed, I would suspect is probably a 90-minute job. And then that's when you can realise how long route building takes if you've got detailed gardens and stuff. And it's also why some people might want to cover garden areas with trees and stuff like that, is because it takes a damn long time to do it. The joy of freeware, of course, is that I could spend the next 6 weeks doing this and nobody's going to complain. I can, you know, it's when you're doing the payware route and you have to actually get this done. And that's where overtime ends up being worked, or unpaid overtime ends up being worked, because it's what you sort of schedule yourself to do before the route is sort of in production. And then you get to it and you're like, this row of houses is taking longer than I expected it to, and stuff like that. Whereas with freeware, you can just sort of dawdle along and not really worry about how long it's taking. I'm not worried at all about how long this takes. It's not anything I care about, even in the slightest, because it's just a leisure project at the end of the day. So I don't have to worry about how long I take doing this. I'm a bit more conscious because we're on an episode of this and on YouTube. A bit more conscious of doing it as fast as I can, but also at the same time, I suppose because I've been doing it so long, I don't need to keep slowing down and stuff. I mean, I have been doing it for quite a few years, so you can sort of knock these things out pretty quickly. But if I was doing it, to be honest, off episode, it'd probably be nearly as fast. There's not really anything different that I'm doing. But all I'm doing with these garden sheds is just making sure each one has its own sort of rotation, each one has its own look. And what we'll do is when we've done each one of these stages, we'll go back and we'll have a look and see what the view looks like at the other end of the houses row. You can see we're about halfway along the sort of look now. But yeah, if you were really wanting to do this quickly and didn't, you know, it wouldn't really make a massive difference to the quality. You could just drop the same shed in 28 times in the same rotation, snap to terrain, and you could do what I'm doing here probably about 3 or 4 times quicker, and it wouldn't look much worse at all. And indeed, that's the exact sort of thing that DTG will do, and I'm sure other developers will do. I've done it myself in the past, because at the end of the day, it's just that extra mile that we're going in. We're going that little bit extra to change it up a bit so it's not all the same. Especially when it's clearly visible from the track. If it's only partially visible from the track, then it's obviously a different kettle of fish. You don't need to get too wound up about doing it if it's slightly obscured from view or whatever. These are absolutely banging the line of sight, so we've got to make sure we're doing right, or certainly to a high standard. Is the thing I would say. Again, I'm not too fussed about if it's perfectly accurate and stuff like that. 99.9% of people that you're aiming your routes at aren't going to care if the garden shed is the exact type game, the exact type of garden shed and stuff like that. It's not how it works in Train Sim. So these ones are slightly obscured actually by a line of bushes, so we don't need to worry too much about these, but we will still do the same, carry on the same as we're doing anyway, because we're sort of pretty much at the end of the road, to be honest. And already we've taken 10 minutes and all we've done is put some garden sheds in. So that's now about an hour that this has taken in total, or 50 minutes or something like that, just to do this row of houses and the gardens. Now if you're going for a big area, we've got to do this, or I've got to do this off episode for the other side of the track. And there's also an entire estate that's below the track level. So the key to remember on that side, there's going to need to be a bit more detail on that side because it's below track level. If it's above track level, I can only see this row of houses, and then as I'm going along, I can't see out behind there. We'll just put houses behind it. As I'm going this way, you're probably going to see a little bit more. Again, we're not really going to go still, even then, we're not going to go over the top because I'm very conscious of FPS. And I want people to be able to have a reasonably good experience in terms of FPS. I've got my own start targets that I'm aiming for. And I will compromise in places, but overall I want it to be a good experience. And another reason why we don't put the garden lofts in, so the fences and stuff. A big reason you only do those, or I only do those on the first row here, is because if I went and did every particular garden fences, for one, it'd take like 1,000,000 years to finish your route, which you don't want. But the big reason you wouldn't do it is what they call tile store. So if I went and put every single garden fence in for the first 4 streets on both sides of the track, you would notice a massive loading stutter. Now loading stutter is part and parcel of train sim, we can't really avoid it with the standard routes these days. It's not something that you can get rid of really, it happens. But you can certainly work on it to make it so it doesn't happen as badly as it could by knocking out the unnecessary stuff. By, you know, using your nous a bit and actually thinking, does that need to be in the route? And if the answer to that is probably not, get rid of it. Just get rid of it, it doesn't need to be there. Your ideal thing is if 80% of people can see it or are going to care about it, is do it. The 20% that are going to go over here and go, aha, look, oh my god, there's not a fence behind this house. Ignore that 20% because you don't need them. They're not the base usership of train sim. Simple as that. So what we've done, we've got the sheds in. See, they're nicely varied. I probably could have put a bit more rotation on, but then they are quite narrow gardens. Now, if we left it like that, to be fair, it wouldn't actually be a bad thing. It looks alright, doesn't it? It doesn't look too bad. But what I'm thinking about is, you want to come up here and take a screenshot. You might want to take a screenshot looking that way. They just look a bit plain. People have more than just garden sheds. Now, not everyone has the same things in the gardens. So not everyone's going to get a trampoline, for instance. Somebody might have a bike. This guy here could have a bike, look. Now, we could just place his bike like that, and it's like, oh, well, that doesn't look very good, does it? So what we could do is pull it away from the fence a bit. Click the rotate icon, click... Oh. Click the fence. No, don't click the fence. I've clicked the fence. That's the wrong thing. Click the bike. And then get onto the rotate tool. On the local, local modification. So don't have it in global, because if you have it in global transform, world transform, your rotation will go to the way of the train sim world sort of like rotation. Put it on local, it'll work to the asset, and assuming the asset's been built properly, you'll be able to just rotate it left, right, up and down basically. And we can then give this bike the effect of being lent on the fence. Like so. So already, we've just added a little bit of detail there. Front wheel's floating slightly, so let's just rotate it downwards. Like that. There we go. And then we want to drop it down so it's not floating. Simple as that. That's all we've done there. Now, because this is obviously somebody that's quite athletic, he's going to have a trampoline. He's not going to have a trampoline that big though. He's going to have a small trampoline. He ain't got much money, can't afford a big trampoline. Spends it on his bike. What else can we do in here? Well, we can also fix this fence gap. Look, so we've got these gaps. When you're doing a loft and you do it on a hill and you get these gaps in your lofts, well, that's another problem with train sim and lofts. So you'll get gaps in them. So you can put you've got your... Basically, it's where I've stopped doing left clicked and started a new section of fencing. So we've got the yellow arrow there. Now what we can do is add one each side of it and then pull the middle one down. And it gets rid of the gap. You'll probably create a new gap somewhere else. We've sort of nearly created one there, but not quite, which is okay. And what we can do is something that I didn't add into the selection here, is add some JT flowers in. So we could put in... Just add the flowers to the selection, so we can put some flowers in. Some daffodils. So they'll add to the little view. And it's all about building up these views. This guy's obviously some sort of gardener, so he's got his drugs tent here. I mean, his garden tent there. And he likes sitting outside in his garden. So that's another little scene built up. These guys, they've just got a garden shed. He's got his trampoline. Now, one other thing we can do as well is put conservatories on these houses. So if we go over here, again, click that into the red box. Some of these can have conservatories. Let's see how they fit though, because we've got small gardens, so I'm not sure how well they're going to fit. See, they don't fit. But we can get around that problem by going to the scale tool, taking the padlock off. So we're still on local transform. Taking the padlock off, it means we can modify stuff in different directions. So we can make it narrower, but we can also make it shorter. And just generally make it so it fits, is the idea. Now we can't put them on any of these houses. There's only basically one type of these houses that we can get this on. Just make it wider again there, because that's a decent sized garden. Now I'm not worried that there's grass inside there. I can't really do what about that because of the lay of the land in Train Sim. I could rotate it and everything and then pull it up. But the problem is then it looks like the conservatory is hanging off the front of the house. To be honest, I'm kind of thinking I'm not going to put on a conservatory on there because it just looks a bit crap. Now I'm not too fussed though about the grass inside though. I can get rid of the grass by doing that. Now is it floating? That's the next question. Slightly. So I'd rather have grass inside that person's conservatory than floating. But what we'll do is we just want to make it. So what we're trying to do here is the ones that's viewable from the track. We want to make it so that you're not seeing the same sort of repeating things going on. You want to feel like you're driving through a virtual world that could exist in real life. That's what we're going for, is something that could exist in real life. So that's the case of not overdoing things, so both in a positive and negative side. So try and make an area look really nice, and you could put a conservatory on nearly every one of these houses, and not nearly every one of these houses have a conservatory, for instance. So it's about moderating it and trying to keep it sensible. And same for all the other things. It's just using your brain and thinking about, right, what would that be like in real life? I know, obviously, you just let your imagination flow as well. I'm not looking at Google. You can see I'm not looking at Google Street View. These houses could look completely different in real life. But the gardens, they're just gardens. You know, you don't have to overthink it. Just make it sensible. And as I said, let your imagination take you. But just keep it realistic. It's simple, really. It's just a case of having the time to do it. Because it does take a long time, as you've seen. I'm probably not going to do the entire row here because we are getting a bit lost in trees. We'll see. We're about half an hour in, I think, at least into the episode. And I don't want to go too long. This guy's got to pick it all because he just likes to do monkey bars off of that. Again, another greenhouse. He can have his greenhouse in next to his shed. Another garden table. They've all got these posh tables, so we'll put this one. These people just could only afford a plastic set. They are expensive though, them big tables. I don't blame them, to be honest. Now what I'm looking at now is whether I can give somebody another bike. Is it worth giving somebody another bike? So we can do it here, look. We're far enough away from the first house that you're not going to get them both in the same screenshot if you take a screenshot. And these are the little things that I'm doing just for people that want to go into this row house and take a screenshot, for instance. Because you're not going to see this bike from the track. But if you come up here thinking, right, I'd just like to get a screenshot of this row of houses, then you will see it. So it's moderation like that. And I'd only ever do that on the front row houses. Or the nearest row houses. Or somewhere you can just get a little screenshot look. I'm not going to do it where there's no reason to. So I'm not going to go over here and put somebody's bike in somebody's back garden behind it, because what the hell are you going to be looking at from here? Can't even see the trains. So yeah, it's all about trying to keep that mix between realism and performance. No trampolines due somewhere here. We haven't got space for goalposts and stuff in these gardens. I do normally like to when there's a big there's a big garden here. So what we could do here is we could put goalposts in. Goalpost soccer. So these are more like a kid's set of goalposts, look. We can make them smaller with the scale tool. I've gone into a lot of this stuff in the past in the early episodes, guys, so if you haven't already, and you're just trying to learn the basics of rebuilding, track laying, how do I use the movement buttons and stuff, check out the early episodes because they'll help you out quite a lot with that sort of thing. We're at episode 25 now, so we're quite a sort of an advanced level in terms of what we're trying to do. I mean, this isn't advanced per se, but it's obviously it's getting the job done rather than looking at everything in intricate detail. They won't have that there because I won't be able to see out the front window, would they? Pick over on this one. See, I don't use much of the decking stuff because I don't think that's really necessary. You can't really see it from anywhere. The idea is that there's stuff poking up above the fences from the screenshot perspective and also from the perspective of somebody that's in the cab of the train. So the idea is that you come along and you see different things poking up. Especially if you're in passenger view, it should look pretty decent that. Going along here and you see all these houses. Not that speed, Christ, that's warp speed. Right, let's get one last thing. We're finally getting there. We can't. Bad JT, can't fit them in. Big trampolines, aren't there? Got a gap in the fence there, look, so it's actually floating a bit. So we need to do here. Again, put the ones either side, and then just select the middle one, put it down. So you got no gap, which we've got rid of now. And there's some bushes and stuff need to go in there, but you get the gist of it. We've made a decent job of it, I think, there. Now what we can do here is, look, we've got a nice bit here where we're coming along in the cab, and we can see behind that fence on the right there's a nice bit of land where we could drop something over the fence. So something's gone over the fence here. The folk that live here, the Baddens, this lot, they were from Castleford originally and they moved here, you know, and it's like slums and you just chuck stuff off a fence, don't you? Maybe this one because they're growing some cannabis bushes in the garden. So the bad lads, so let's look for stuff they've chucked off at fence, because you always find most places, unless it is a decent street, and actually this is a pretty decent street in real life, but unless it's a perfect street, you're always going to find stuff that's been thrown over a garden fence onto a railway, because for some reason if you live near a railway, the done thing seems to be just lob it on the railway, you know, to hell with it and it's gone, when really it's not, you've just chucked it over your back fence. So it's there. He got a bike. Somebody's nicked his wheel, and then he's lobbed it off a fence because he's a bit annoyed, I imagine. Don't know what other things we've got here. Callum did some random things like little plastic bags. I'm not going to place them. I'm not going to place out like rubble. No, definitely going to place a pile of pallets. We could put one pallet behind there. We've actually got DTG have got some mattresses, haven't they? So we could put a mattress behind here. Mattress standing, look. So we could just lay it sort of on the back of the fence, like they've just dropped it over the back for whatever reason. Because they didn't want to go to the tip. I mean, you don't have to worry about going far to the tip, just go to Castleford, you know. Walden Road's a perfect place to chuck it. Could only improve Cass Stadium. If anybody wonders why I'm going so hard on Cass, it's just because Matt watches these videos and is a Cass fan and I'm a Feather Rovers fan. And there's a little bit of a rivalry there. And it's all light-hearted banter. But if you don't watch the streams, you don't get the gist of why I'm saying it. So if you watch the streams, you'll get why we're saying it. So yeah, we got the little scene there. So now as you're coming up in the cab, you'll see that these naughty people have thrown a mattress and a bike over a back fence. And it's, you know, it's pretty easy to do. That's not difficult rebuilding what we've done in this episode. I don't think it's difficult. I don't really struggle with it. It's one of the more fun and basic sort of sides to rebuilding, actually. I say fun. I mean, doing the lofts was not fun. I don't enjoy doing all these lofts. It's an absolute pain. But then when you see the scene when it's done, so we can see it from here, I'm rather happy with it, reasonably sort of pleased with how it's looking. What I could put in to improve it a little bit more is a couple of trees. Because, you know, people do have trees in the garden. They don't just have... you know, people have bushes and stuff in the garden, don't they? You don't just have fences. So what we can do is we can scale some trees down. We don't want full-size beech trees and stuff in people's gardens. We can put them in the hedge line. And then we can just make them a bit smaller. And we don't want to put them all sort of in a line. So I've put those... Look, I've perfectly put them in a line. They're not going to be perfectly in a line, are they, really? You know, in real life, you're not going to see the same trees in the same place in each garden. So put them at different points in the garden. And I'm putting them where these hedges are because it obviously gives a way for them to grow and stuff like that. And just also hides the trunks as much as anything. And this is just adding a little bit, another layer of detail. I also need to rotate them a bit because I'm not rotating there, and they should be rotated. I love this. I love this tree. The HCN one, horse chestnut. It's a really nice model. Maple tree. Again, we can drop one of these in down here. Scale it so it's nice and small. I know what it's about is just varying it up again. So we're adding layers. I call it layering is what we're doing. We're layering up the scenery. We're making it so I've just moved that conservatory. We're not making it so that. We're making it so that it's dynamic, I guess is the word. Because I could have just lobbed the same fence in all the way along here. One fence core. I could have just chucked a garden shed in, and to be honest, most people would not really notice. But for the extra hour that I've spent, it's probably added an extra 20 minutes on at most, I would say. What I've done, maybe 25 minutes. I would suggest probably not even that though. We've managed to get what I would call a decent looking view. You feel like you're really somewhere. It doesn't look like Clonesville. So hopefully that's helped you out with how you do gardens and stuff, and I hope you've enjoyed the episode, guys. If there's something in the video that you're thinking, how the hell has he managed that, or wait, how did you do that? Check out the early episodes because we did go through quite a lot of the really basic stuff in the first few episodes. So I would suggest checking them out if you haven't already. If you want to see how Tom Root builds, he has got a slightly different styles to me. Check out his streams. He streams regularly. He streams the Cumbrian Coast route building, and that's on Twitch at twitch.tv/trainsim_TV. And he often puts his developer diaries and stuff on our YouTube channel on here as well. So if you haven't already, please do consider hitting subscribe and hitting that notification bell as well, so you get to know first when the next episodes go up. And as always, guys, really appreciate your views. If you've got any feedback, if you want to ask a question like how do you do this, drop it in the comments. If it's something that I can do, I will do it. Don't ask about the Google like money things. You can ask about it, unfortunately. It's not something I can help with. I can't do anything about people not being able to get the maps overlays working. I understand how frustrating it is not to be able to do it. It's just seems really buggy for people. There are some YouTube tutorials for it, but you won't find many because it is such a finicky thing, especially the billing side. And if you're wondering about the billing for the Google Maps overlays, you shouldn't ever get charged for it. I've never been charged for it, and I've been using TrainSim with those for years. And I work on my amount of played hours on TrainSim the last 2 weeks is 125 hours, and I've not been charged ever. Over 18,000 hours in the game. So don't worry about that sort of thing. Again, guys, cheers for watching. Thanks very much. See you later. Bye.